My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Watch Out for Fireball's Dispatch, our monthly Q&A, listener response, game announcement topic episode.
Yep, we're halfway through, baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this year has flown by.
Distressingly so. I want to get us started off with mailbag, Gary.
Yeah, let's do some. Let's go to the old mailbag rodeo.
Mailbag right here.
This is our most country western show.
Yes.
Yeah, for some reason.
Yeah, I've only got one thing here. Eric sent to the P.O. box something very nice for me. Some Magic the Gathering booster packs. Just saying, I know you said you didn't play Magic, TM, Encircled, but maybe you'll get a bit of enjoyment from the art or just pass them along. This is very sweet, Eric. There's also a drawing of Marge on the back holding up a Magic card saying, I just think they're neat.
Aww,
so
cute.
Very cute and thoughtful.
What sets?
So I've got 2 Lord of the Rings, the Tales from Middle-earth ones. I've not opened these yet. And then I have 2 that seem to be dedicated to a kind of blade-headed demon woman named Phyrexia.
Sure.
Yeah.
The Phyrexia is a plane.
Okay.
Phyrexia all will be one, is that set, I think?
Yes. Yeah.
So, the Phyrexians are neat. They're like big evil Cenobite things.
Oh, no. Yeah. So that's what she looks like. Look at the cards.
You'd like the Phyrexians. They're cool.
Let me just take a look and see. Do I have anything? Oh, I've got a foil East Farthing Farmer.
don't know about that one.
Yeah.
There's only a couple. This is all stuff I haven't played with. I just keep a vague awareness of it. So there's like 3 names that I know are cool, desirable cards or something like that. But it all kind of goes in one ear, out the other when I'm like eating breakfast.
Mm-hmm. Can't guarantee I'll pick up a Magic habit, but I really appreciate you sharing your enthusiasm, Eric. So thank you.
Yeah. Go Eric.
Yeah. And if you want to send stuff, the P.O. box information is on our Patreon.
Yeah. I'll get us started here with a game comment here from JQ. Says, I've only listened to a handful of these episodes, but I'd like to express some appreciation for something you brought up in the Tunic episode, accessibility options, or more specifically, options baked into the game that allow you to tweak the difficulty to your liking. I don't know if it's just because I'm getting older, but my tolerance for difficulty spikes or even just frustrating gameplay mechanics, aka the Tunic stamina system, has gotten very thin. A very recent example is 9 Souls. I bought it because it looked interesting and I love Hollow Knight, but pairing and me are like oil and water. A few hours in, while somewhat fun, it made me think that this game was made by the Get Good crowd, specifically for the Get Good crowd. While the exploration and art style are really cool, I just could not get a grasp on the combat, and it doesn't help when even the basic enemies can 3 to 4 shot you if you're not careful. This is on their standard difficulty. I was getting frustrated and finally switched to story mode, an irreversible option for some reason. And the devs gracefully give you attack damage and damage received sliders, which seem to be the only difference with standard. I kept the attack around the same and just lowered the damage received by a bit, and I'm now several more hours and 3 bosses down into the game, and I was minutes away from submitting a refund request.
Yeah. I love it when games do this. It was something I was very happy to have when we did Control a couple years back.
Yes.
Because sometimes all that I need is just to mess with the damage modifiers a little bit. And this can be fun and less annoying. I just wish that this stuff wasn't called accessibility options. I understand how it fits in, but also I think accessibility options also means a thing related to people with different abilities.
It's a squares and rectangles thing.
Yeah.
Right? Like you could have certain accessibility issues that would make this also necessary.
Yes.
Like coordination or things like that. So they're used by all.
Yes.
I don't, one of the things I think about with this that comes up in the discourse is I don't want somebody to have to present some disability ID just because they want to play a game in an easier mode. But it also, to your point, it doesn't need to have an excuse.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be, this is only for certain people. So that is the virtue in putting it in.
Right.
This question is the illustration of the thing I've been saying for, the entire length of the show, which is the option is not me getting the idealized version or a less idealized version of the game. It's me getting a less idealized version and fucking quitting.
Yep.
Like asking for a refund because it's just not worth it because I'm too frustrated. And I don't understand the attitude that like you should just tank that. It's a weird thing where people are like, oh, that's just not for you. Haha. And I'm like, no, but I had fun when I did it my way. Like, what are you losing?
Yeah.
Like nothing happens here. You're fine. And the whole world agrees with this. Like there are a bunch of people who don't like it, but like game developers are doing it more and more. And if a game developer doesn't, a modder will do it.
Yep.
Like you can play Sekiro at 20% speed. Like the demand is there. So stop fighting the tides.
Yeah.
It's not going to work.
Developers stop being Christopher Nolan. All stop.
Yes. Yeah. There's a certain amount of preciousness that is a little pathetic.
Yes. And I don't put that, I have seen fewer developers say that than people speaking for developers.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. It's mostly people defending from software. Like weirdly enough.
Yeah.
Which is also silly because they've always put, kind of implicit easy modes in their games and stuff.
Yes. This is kind of related, but Care writes, how do you use mods for games you cover on the show? I know you've used unofficial patches in the past, but what about UI mods, like changing inventory interface for Bethesda games, or general quality of life mods, like increasing companion limit for Mask of the Betrayer? How much do you want the show to present the out-of-the-box version of the game versus playing a version you enjoy more?
That's interesting. Like, because the reason why I think that's interesting is because of the example of Mask of the Betrayer, which we did for neither reason. That was to talk about everybody.
Yes.
Like that was going to be a game where the companions all had interesting content and quests, and we wanted to catch it all. If for Real Lich Hours, if we weren't doing, if I wasn't playing that multiple times to catch everybody, it would have been something we might have done for that as well.
Yeah.
Just to make sure we get everybody. So there's a completionism angle to it too, where like on one hand, you are getting a less out of the box experience because Mask of the Betrayer was definitely easier with every companion. At the same time, we're getting the full box in terms of, like critical context and presenting it story and kind of character dynamic wise.
Yeah.
For that.
Like everything, it's case by case. And also like you're going to know when you see it. Like if I was playing Fallout New Vegas and I said, hey, Gary, did you think it was weird how like everybody had their boobs out? It was a very strange choice for Obsidian to have made there.
Yeah. Damn it, Sawyer. And then ease of use things, I think of ease of use things as fine to fuck with if you're just saving time. Like no matter what, all you're doing, if the difference between like an inventory limit is I make, 3 trips back to town instead of 5 for the same amount of equipment, and doing that has a trivial cost other than time, I think that there's nothing wrong with just turning that shit off. Like, I don't, it does dovetail with the first question because like you could say like, oh, the developer in the original, Paper Mario gave you a 10 item limit because they wanted you to have to go back to town. And I'm like, motherfucker, do you think I'm not going back to town enough in this game? Like that is not, there's not really fast travel, and you patched in fast travel, but it's one way. Do you really think I'm not making enough trips back and forth?
Yeah.
Like, that kind of stuff, like don't, generally these are things that I think I feel really good about when it comes down to making me feel less itchy about wasting time.
Yeah.
With stuff.
Probably the game I modded most heavily. Maybe System Shock 2. I did do some like fan update mod on that just to make it more stable or something, which also made that one sexy lady enemy topless as well.
Oh, sure.
There was also some thirsty gamer shit.
Packaged in a little bit of something for daddy.
Yeah, just a little bit of something for daddy. But like Morrowind, that is a great enough game that I wouldn't want somebody to not experience it. If the choice was not experiencing it or modding it, so it was just a little bit more modern and in look and in interaction, then for fuck's sake, just mod it. Like that's Yeah. We're all different in terms of how much archaic game stuff we can tank. So find your own limit, I think, is what we think. So in terms of stuff for the show, we generally want to present it as it is. Yes.
But we will stop things from wasting our time and we will try to cover more stuff. And stability is the other thing. Like that's kind of a wasting time thing because you're just losing progress, losing saves.
Yeah.
That's not intended part of the design.
No.
Yeah.
Not at all.
So nothing to respect there. Alistair says, since Onimusha was originally intended to be a Resident Evil game set in the Sengoku era of Japan, and that would have been sick, what historical setting would you like to see a Resident Evil game take place in? I think if it kept the survival horror aspects, a historical setting would be sick nasty. Much love, Ali in Scotland. I want a Dark Ages Resident Evil.
Yeah.
I've said that before. I think it'd be really cool. Crossbows and shit. Go out into, covens.
Mm-hmm.
Go fight the Sawney Bean family instead of the Bakers, like that kind of shit.
Yeah.
I think that'd be really cool.
Show like the origins of the Spencer clan or something like that, right?
Yeah. King Spencer, like Baron Spencer.
Yeah.
And the absolutely bonkers castle.
Mm-hmm.
He designed with all kinds of, and they'd have to go, rather than having chess piece keys, they'd have to go further into the past. So it'd be like, Gargantua and Pantagruel keys and stuff. Like, you have to get the Gargantua medallion and put it into the Pantagruel slot.
There's so many answers to this that would probably be, I don't know, I don't need like a 1920s pulp or Lovecraftian one. I don't need a Victorian Resident Evil, so I'm going to say 1970s America, kind of deal. Make it just a little bit more a little bit more stylish, a little bit more funky. I think that would be nice. But
I would do any of them.
Yeah.
Like if they did put out a 20s one, or a 70s one or a Renaissance one, I'd be down for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a fun, interesting direction for the series to go into.
Yeah.
And would also shake off a bunch of its weird paramilitary stink.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
We wouldn't have the Chris Redfield super soldier stuff as much.
And it would get them out of, every story being set in roughly the same 10-year footprint, just constantly retconning, doing a saw on the continuity. Yeah.
A medieval peasant would absolutely drown Blue Umbrella in a crick. They'd right to do it.
Catherine writes, this is a question for Gary. One of my hobbies is spelunking down itch.io to find weird and unique story games. During a recent deep dive, I was extremely surprised to discover a name that I recognized attached to a narrative adventure game about divorce. It's been about 9 years since Early Frost Warning was released, and Gary, I was wondering how you feel about that game now. Would you recommend that curious parties play it? What was the process of creating it like? Do you ever consider making more games? Apologies if I've unearthed something that should have stayed buried, but please know that I always appreciate your conversations about your creative work. And also, does Cole have any secret games on itch.io? No, I don't.
Cole co-developed Cave Story. He's been hiding it for a long time. But it's
Yep. I made it when I was 16.
Yep. It's no, you did nothing that's secret. I just don't really promote it. And the reason I don't promote it. So a thing about Gary that I talk about and is just true is I do not have tech brain at all. Anything that is code based or string of numbers based, it's very hard for me to keep it in my head that this is going somewhere. So when I made that in Adventure Game Studio, and there's ways to update things so they work with modern systems in Adventure Game Studio that I found myself, it was too hard to keep it updated.
Mm-hmm.
The process of making that was basically breaking Adventure Game Studio to make it make sense in the way that made sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
It has a Shadowgate interface, which Adventure Game Studio is not made to do.
Mm-hmm.
So basically all of the images in it are backgrounds that like a little King's Quest should walk on.
Mm-hmm.
You think about Adventure Game Studio, that's like Unavowed was made in that.
Yeah.
So these things that are just images would be things for characters to walk around on. And the hotspots you click to get the dialogue would be items that exist in the world rather than a first person view.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of had to make it work one way or another, which is sometimes how I work when I'm working with tech shit.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily, if you can get it to run, it won't bother me if anybody plays it. It's probably a little juvenile. It's old.
Mm-hmm.
Not juvenile. It's, quite a long time ago, but I'm not necessarily the same person, that I was when I made that. I don't think there's anything problematic in it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, I don't know if it'll run.
Yeah.
Cause I'm bad at that shit. I don't know. It's like, as I get older, I'm like, yeah, I could learn it. I could probably do it, but it's really hard to do that while doing everything else. It would have to be fun for me.
Yeah.
It would have to take up a hobby slot because my work slots are all those ring slots are full. And it wouldn't be a hobby for me because I don't think it's that fun. It's not that I'm incurious or don't like learning. It's I like learning about different stuff.
Yeah.
You know? So it's just the brain I got.
Yeah.
Not the way my brain works.
So I think the takeaway is caveat emptor.
Yeah. But if anyone wants to look it up, it won't bother me. But keep in mind, it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So there's probably writing it and stuff that I would probably do a better job at now.
Right.
Owlology says, Owlology.
Study
That
of
is a rough one.
owls.
Owlology says, we all have a personal gaming history that has impacted and shaped how we feel about games and maybe formed us on deeper levels also. What are some of those memorable, nostalgic, and important gaming experiences in your lifetime? What games? How old were you? Did you play alone or with somebody? What was special about the experience?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plenty of these, obviously mostly pulling from youth. Also, a lot of them are, I've talked about in some form or fashion, either on a WAF episode or an Abject Suffering episode. So I don't know, playing Zombies Ate My Neighbors with my dad, brother, and uncle, just passing the controllers around. Huge memory for me. Great time.
Yeah. I'm all of these, when I think about game moments, I remember some of them are not, they're not influential or necessarily special.
Yeah.
I have very distinct memories of playing Arrow the Acrobat, listening to REM's Green on tape over and over. Arrow the Acrobat isn't special to me. It's just a very vivid memory.
Yeah.
I remember being sick from school and then that transitioning into a weird home situation, one of the many times as a youth where we went and slept on the floor of one of my mom's friends for a long time and I was kind of taken out of school. This happened to me a lot when I was in junior high and the freshman year in high school and playing Final Fantasy VI, taking my Super Nintendo, hooking it up to a spare bedroom in a stranger's house, TV in a spare bedroom in a stranger's house and sleeping on a mattress on the floor and just playing Final Fantasy VI all the time because things were horrible and I was, probably scared and uncomfortable, and dipping into that. And that is a nice moment of escapism, but it's not formative. It's just a thing that happened. It's just an intense memory.
Yeah.
So I've got a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah. Me playing Mega Man X during my family's vacation down to Disney World, riding in my grandparents' RV down there, playing it on the 13-inch television back there. Being at my grandparents' camper with my Game Boy playing Super Mario Land 2, the 6 golden coins, just a bunch of stuff like that. Not especially foundational. It wouldn't work its way into the biopic of my life.
Yeah, there'd just be a montage of Cole sitting and playing video games at family events.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
but no, it just we all have kind of that high fidelity kind of memory a little bit, right?
Yeah,
which is just I was here playing this when. Yeah.
Well, and there's ones, it's interesting because there are ones that stand out as memories and then ones that I've forgotten the details of. I just know that it happened. Right. So I beat Battletoads as a kid.
Yeah.
We talked about that before. I don't have a very distinct memory of that. It was just during a summer when I went and stayed with my dad before my dad took off, where I played Nintendo basically all summer.
Yeah.
He still had to work. I just sat at home, played Nintendo and watched Comedy Central all day, every day during the summer. And I know I grinded my way through Battletoads during that, but it's not a memory with a lot of other sense things attached. It's not intense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Tyler writes, are there any games you enjoyed playing in your past that are now unavailable completely? In other words, games you cannot play physically, digitally, or via emulation. If so, it would be interesting to hear you share about it. For instance, I played the relatively mediocre Dr. Goo series a lot as a kid, but cannot find it anywhere now.
Yeah, that's a fun feeling when that happens and when you find it. Sometimes you can get it. That was me with the game Rockstar, which we covered for Abject Suffering, which was a game I played constantly on PC and I could not find online for a long time. The old text kind of a choose your own adventure sim kind of thing.
Yeah. So this is a weird thing where this used to be more true and now is not. I'm looking at, my abandonware, Dr. Goo, Windows 1999. That is a time period, from 1998 through 2003, where PC games are a fucking nightmare to get to run.
Yeah.
Windows 95, 98, and a little bit of XP. But it's up there, and probably with a little bit of finagling, you could get that to work. It ends up being, I was about to say like Spec Ops: The Line, right? That was pulled for music licensing reasons, but PS4 emulations to a point, and also there are pirated PC versions where you can get. So it's hard for me to outright say, like, and then it gets back to like versions of games. So like the first version of Tibia that I played back when my parents wouldn't get me a subscription to EverQuest, right?
Mhm.
Tibia, changed just like RuneScape or any of those other free MMOs a lot. So like that launch version of Tibia is not anything you can get a hold of anymore, probably. But bigger MMOs, there are player servers for them. I can play pretty much any era of EverQuest that I want right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a problem that's getting better
Yeah.
for the most part. And then the other way, there are things that you can play, but it's kind of a pain.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still possible, so it doesn't really count as this. Like I think about like 360 emulation is still not quite there.
Yeah.
So if I want to play Crackdown, I have to literally find my copy of it
Mm-hmm.
and get out my 360. But that's just a pain. That's not too hard to do.
Yeah.
Like I can do it. I just don't want to.
And that's
So it's not really a thing.
And that's only a thing because, like, well, if you or anybody else on Earth owned an Xbox Series S or X, you can just put the disc in and it'll play it, right? Like Microsoft's backward compatibility is actually pretty good. It's very rare that there is something that is not available on PC. Like you end up finding things like Crackdown or like the Otogi games, right?
Yeah. So for the most part, this has largely been solved.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing the only other thing I can think of is back when I was just getting Derek's cast off computers. So like when I was in my 486, 386 era, there was a text-based game called Crime, which I think I've mentioned before. That is, it was all ASCII graphics.
Mm-hmm.
You controlled a little cursor through maybe say like a 10 by 10 grid of little boxes, and you'd move your cursor and it was randomized each time, and there'd be random encounters, and basically you just did crime shit.
Okay.
Like you took drugs and mugged people and tried to avoid getting mugged.
Yeah.
And the way I remember it is like there was a real bullshit randomization kind of order operation. So like you would find a knife, and then if you found the knife before you got mugged, you'd be fine.
Okay.
And just as a kid, because we were little, I was low teen, we were little shitty edgelords, and because it would run on this 386 computer, I played a lot of it.
Yeah.
And as you can imagine, Crime Game has really bad SEO.
Very bad. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the one thing that I haven't looked for a while too.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it's back.
Yeah.
Crime's back, baby. Politics. Maybe last games question.
Yeah.
Move on to other stuff. Greg says, I'm curious to hear your thoughts about what your personal price points for games are. I have 3 of them. I won't buy a game above 60. I'll always wait for a sale to drop below 30 in most cases. And if it's $5 or under, I auto buy. Do you wait for price points on games? And if so, what criteria do you use?
How much I want the game.
Yeah. And that's basically it. Like I generally won't buy things new.
Yeah.
With only a couple exceptions, because I play most of my gaming on PC and Switch now, which gets a lot of sales.
Mm-hmm.
And I was saying it for years, like PC gaming can basically be free.
Yeah.
You can play infinite good games that are all go on sale for less than like $3.
There's a whole subreddit for that, Patient Gamer, right?
Yep. Yeah. A patient gamer, generally. If I really want something though, I'll buy it just for full price.
Yeah.
And then I've killed the part of me that buys things if they're cheap, if I'm not interested in playing it now.
Yeah.
Because I don't need to have it all in my I used to do that, and my Steam library attests to it, and I just have all the stuff I picked up for 99 cents on Steam sales that I've either played for 10 minutes and was like, this sucks, or I've never even looked at it and I have no idea why I bought it.
Yep.
It's just there and it doesn't do anything for me. So now do I want to play the game? Like, will it become hard to find? If not, do I want to play it now? If not, am I pretty sure I'll play it in like the next year?
Yeah.
If not, I just wait.
Yeah. This is what wish lists are for too,
Yeah.
like, and then it becomes like, well, it can just sit on there forever. Or I don't know, if it goes on a deep enough discount, it might drop below a threshold, but like, it just depends on how much I want it. Like I've got no problem paying $30 for an indie game because indie games can be worth that. It's it's fine.
Well, and if you want to play it,
yeah,
like the what you want to do at the moment is, it's weird that this even isn't the only pillar of the conversation about this kind of stuff. Like, I understand price is different and people can afford different things. That obviously matters. But like, when thinking about a game, when people are just like, oh, I just picked it up, it's cheap. Like, maybe someday in the future, a hypothetical version of me will want to play it.
Yeah.
In retrospect, now I think like, oh, like, I want to play a video game is like, I should take the same quality that like a book or a sandwich.
Yeah.
Like, I want to eat this sandwich, therefore I will buy the sandwich. I would like to read this book, therefore I will buy this book.
Yeah.
As opposed to just kind of like rather have it and not, have it and need it, than not have it and need it.
Yeah. To give a little bit of an answer to this, like, if something that I want to play is $20, I don't think about it. If it's more than that, I'm just kind of like, all right, well, maybe I'll like wish list it. But usually if I want to play it and it's, it ends up on the wish list, I usually break down and just end up getting it anyway. When the urge is great. So
it's also something where I would be lying if I said that the weird job doesn't influence this.
Yeah.
Because like, there's something like I maybe will want to play, but I'm like, I got too much work to do. If I have that around, that's going to be a distraction. I can't carve space for that right now.
Yeah. The thing that I buy the most games for is Hexcrank streams, and I can pretty much justify anything that I want for that because I'm doing it for work. So. And it doesn't come out of the network budget. That's Cole's personal money, so I do not have to feel bad about it at all.
Thank goodness.
Well,
you answered all my follow-up questions in one.
No, I just
Yeah. No, I know. It's your thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I have compunction about spending network money, whereas for myself, whatever.
Yeah. My golden rule for that kind of thing is claim the shit out of it on your taxes.
Oh God, yeah, for fuck's sake.
Just if you're not using the principal funds, but yeah, that's it's work.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So,
let's see. Moving on to life questions. This is mine to read. Max writes, life questions. Gary mentioned at one point learning Esperanto or some Esperanto for a comic book, but never mentioned which one. Was that Saga by any chance?
I don't remember saying that.
Oh,
I have read like the first like 5 volumes of Saga and like it got a little up its ass for me.
Yeah.
Like I love Brian K. Vaughan, but I just got a little bit sick of the plotting of it. Like just the going from disaster to disaster. It started feeling like it wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
So I stopped reading it. But I don't remember Esperanto. The only thing I learned a little bit of is Portuguese.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
This is for both of us, for G and K. I've been going to Kings Island with my daughter this summer, and it got me thinking, if you could design a theme park, what IPs would you theme your park after? What makes a good theme park? Then thanks to both of you. Really appreciate all the care that you put into what you do. Thank you.
Thanks, Max. Good question. I'm going to do a cop-out answer for this a little bit. Because my answer would have been Mario.
Yeah.
Before they did that. Just for kid reasons.
Yeah.
Because of nostalgia and because that, the Mario Land is really cool. The theme park. I would like to see a Fallout theme park. That game is, as that property now has a lot of kind of iconography penetration to it. I've seen Fallout 76 described as a Fallout theme park. I would go into a Wasteland, specifically Fallout Wasteland themed theme park. Especially if they got all the details right. I think that would make that fun and cool.
Yeah. I mean, you could even just it's Nuka World, right? And they have stuff in the fiction for that.
It was the thing that made Nuka World fun.
Yeah.
Like I don't think that's a very good DLC, but I will always go around a big theme park. I think that's a fun video game environment. I love theme parks in real life.
Yeah.
I think they're great.
I'm going to say Resident Evil Land,
Be pretty cool.
I mean, it'd be a lot of like haunted houses, but also,
just make the mansion.
Just
like
make
literally make the mansion 1-to-1. And then just like, I'll pay whatever you want.
Get on it, billionaires.
I'll just go into it. Like it doesn't have to, I don't even know that it needs things in it. I just do it. And like the things for these that make them good to me is detail. I want something to feel, I want to feel like I'm in the place, not a place that is decorated with posters of the property. which is what makes Nintendo Land cool. The gigantic animatronics and stuff.
Yeah.
So in either of those cases, I would want it to have the details right.
No. I'm not a coaster head, so theme park or Kings Island doesn't necessarily do it for me as a theme park. So I would say non-coaster attractions. And if this is open up to like water parks, that's a different discussion because I fucking love a water park with all my goddamn heart.
Yeah, water park's great.
Yeah.
It's a shame that there aren't water properties that I would want to see a water park of.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could do a Resident Evil Revelations water park.
they just take you out on a boat and sink it.
Yeah, and then like the ride is getting out. Yeah. But then again, you're dealing with fucking Blue Umbrella shit.
Yeah,
and Tricell. Like you're getting into the later stuff, and I just don't want to deal with Tricell.
No, thank you at all.
Gotham says, "Hey Gotham, we were in Edinburgh, Scotland for the Taylor Swift show a few weeks back, and we saw who I can only describe as Scottish Gary. Had identical facial features, haircut, and beard to one Gary Butterfield. Unfortunately, he wasn't wearing a kilt, nor was there a pocket or Jessica in sight. He was also ripping fat vape clouds at 9 a.m. on his way to his office job. I wasn't able to get a picture because can you imagine that conversation? Hey man, sorry to bother you. Can I get a picture of you? You're reminding me of a podcaster I know. What's a podcast? How much time do you have?" Also, I'm sorry, Cole, we weren't able to find Scottish Cole or nor Parisian Cole. I'll be more eagle-eyed on our next trip. What have been your favorite or most memorable doppelganger sightings? Cole, Liv and I have seen who we describe as Big Cole.
Okay.
In Portland before.
All right. So Cole's already big.
Bigger.
Okay, bigger Cole. Like bigger Luke. Yeah.
Yeah, like significantly bigger Cole. And taller as well. Like you're very tall.
Yeah.
Like just like a colossus. The Colossus of roads. And by road I mean Sandy Boulevard where we saw him. And we've seen that guy twice now.
Okay.
And every time, like now it's become a thing now that's happened multiple times. We can just be like, oh, Big Cole. And then like that's it.
Yeah. I like Gotham's description here. Unfortunately, he wasn't wearing a kilt, nor was there a pocket or Jessica, which makes it sound like you regularly wear a kilt. Which there would be no problem with that, but it is a bold fashion statement.
It is a bold fashion statement. It's a fashion statement that to me always begs look at me. It's got Unipiper energy.
Yeah,
Jimmy. And again, I'm not Scottish, but I am Irish.
Mm-hmm.
So like I don't know. I know it's not the same thing at all. But I'm just saying I understand the idea of one can have Scottish heritage.
Yes.
And want to wear it because of that. But also you could be the Unipiper.
Right. Yeah. It depends on how many pockets it has. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't see a Scottish Cole because I have one of the most Scottish faces there is. Huh.
Yeah.
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 Oh, well.
I also see Gary's everywhere here because my glasses, beard, hair combo is very common in Portland.
Yeah.
So people will walk up to me and like, oh, I know you. Not because of podcasts or anything like that, but they'll just be like, oh, like, hey, Bob. And I'm like, nah.
Mm-hmm.
I just have to look.
Yeah. I've not run into doppelgangers of you or really other people that I know. The most spooky experience I had with that, I've told this story before, but when I got laid off from my marketing job, the person they brought in to replace me had my exact same name.
Yeah.
It was like the
Very
ending
strange.
of Possession.
Yeah. Very strange. They're the one who came out of the anomaly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, oh gosh, there's that one still from Shameless where Ron Perlman's son looks exactly like me when I had a beard.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Very much so.
I appreciate learning about Scottish Gary. I hope he's doing okay.
Yeah. I hope he's doing okay as well.
Yeah.
Oh.
Let's do media questions, do you think?
Yeah. Is this me or you?
This is me. Bo writes, I saw on Blue Sky that Cole has the Akira 35th anniversary box set, one of the coolest collections of a work made available to purchase for keepsake and not merely made to be held in a museum or curated space. What are some of your favorite ways that the way something has been packaged and contextualized enriches the context of the text?
My stock answer for this or things along this line are the complete annotated Lovecraft by, let me look it up real quick. It's Leslie something. Sorry about this. Typing on main here. Leslie Klinger did this. And if there's any author who's begging for annotations, it's him, and they're really good annotations.
No.
It is a really good way to read those stories because there will be old timey turns of phrase and things that are being like, there's like trivia almost. It's like a combination between an actual guide to old timey terms and vocabulary, but then also like pop up video shit.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is, and because it's Lovecraft, half the time it's like, this is based on a house he saw once. and like, it'll show a little picture of the house and it's just a fucking house.
Okay.
I don't see why anyone would shun it. But then the description is how absolutely squamous and unnerving it is.
Yeah.
But that's a really great bit of packaging because because it's in the public domain, Barnes and Noble will sell so many just complete, like you can get the complete Lovecraft for $20.
No.
Basically anywhere and get everything the man's ever written.
Yeah.
That isn't a letter. But this is the best version to do that, I think.
Mm-hmm. I don't know that I have an answer for this. There's the Akira 35th anniversary set. Like I've seen the movie. I got that because it was on really deep discount. And I was like, I want to read the manga for that because I hear the manga's a lot better. And I flipped through like the art books and stuff, and that's real cool. Yeah, I don't know that I have one here. Like there are fun gimmicky packages or whatever, but so I don't know. Maybe I'll just say big box PC games are always a treat.
Yeah, that's fun to look at, especially when they come with stuff. I've got the Gabriel Knight that comes with the novel.
Yeah. Listener sent me the complete box Maniac Mansion, which I like flipping through. Yeah,
envious of that.
Yes. What does Tom say?
Tom says, as the weather started heating up, I've started a rewatch of The Shield, even though they did write rematch of The Shield, which has very different, not calling anybody out, but that's very different.
Me and Chickless.
Yeah, just absolutely one man, two men enter, one man leave. Rewatch of The Shield, a great show up there with The Wire and Breaking Bad for me. Something about watching it on warm nights really enhances the show's pressure cooker tension and dirty LA crime vibe for me. Do you have any media that you like to enjoy in hot weather or the summer?
For a while, I had the ritual of during the hottest months of the summer, I would watch Falling Down and Fargo back to back.
Okay, yeah, heat up and cool down.
Yeah. That was fun. And then we've talked in the past, like summer was the time for JRPGs, in addition to winter break for me being a time for console RPGs. So there's that. Yeah.
That was the case when I got time off of school.
Mm-hmm.
For it. Now that I have to work through the summer, I do the same things every summer. I just enjoy them less because I hate warm weather.
Yeah.
So I don't like being hot. I keep the climate controlled. I'm an indoor kid.
Yeah.
So for me, I try not to let the weather touch me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Michael writes, Uncanny Avengers Assemble. You're in charge of creating the next Avengers Unity Squad. I have questions.
This isn't for you. This was supposed to come to Days of Future Cast, I think.
You've got 6 slots for 3 Avengers and 3 X-Men. Who's on your team? Who's the leader? Feel free to add their first villain if one comes to mind.
Okay, buckle up.
What's a Unity Squad?
Unity Squad. So after Avengers versus X-Men,
okay,
which was a big crossover that you don't need to know the thing of. One of the points that the X-Men made was like, hey, the government's been making Sentinels that have been hunting us since I was a tiny kid. And you are supposed to be the Avengers. You haven't done anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's fucked up. And one of the thing, Captain America's like, you know what? That's true. It's been, several decades of me just letting teenagers be murdered by robots. I shouldn't do that.
Okay.
So they, as a kind of a PR thing, they made a team. Together to show like, hey, we stand in solidarity with mutants.
Okay.
It's a really good comic. It's the first one by Rick Remender. It has a real bonkers plot. The Red Skull steals Professor Xavier's brain and uses it to like telekinetically do shit. It's cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good comic.
Okay.
But basically the way that I would translate this question would be, who are your top 3 Avengers and X-Men who you'd want to see on a team?
Okay.
And I anticipate that you don't really have an answer for the second part of that. Like, do you have 3 Avengers you like?
I mean, I know the ones from the movies. So my idea would be a theme team based around extremely thick accents.
Oh, that's pretty fun.
Yeah. So you would have
nobody can understand each other.
Nope.
Yeah.
So you've got Nightcrawler, Colossus, and oh god, I had another one here that just one of them. What's another X-Men that had? Oh, Banshee. Let's say Banshee.
Banshee.
Yeah,
Yep.
Banshee can be really hard to understand sometimes. And then I'm looking. Obviously, you have to have Hulk.
Yep, Hulk, Black Widow, and then like Scarlet Witch.
Yeah,
with whatever they're doing with Sokovian accent.
Yeah, that's probably what it would be. And I have no idea how well they would work together. I think there's some real
united in incoherence.
Yeah, there's some real wild card. There's some real wild cards in that deck. But yeah, that is the only like team I can think of. Is just call them the Inscrutables.
Yeah, the Inscrutable Squad. The Unity Inscrutables. That's actually not like a bad team.
Okay.
Like in terms of composition, right? Because you got two big strong guys. Mm-hmm. You've got a couple nimble fighters and everything. You're missing a mind power person, but that's fine.
So if you have Scarlet Witch, that's reality powers is close enough.
Yeah, close enough. Yeah, fairly similar. Yeah. I don't necessarily have a good answer for this. I love that comic. I basically like what they did with it. Mm-hmm. That comic's really good for Rogue and Scarlet Witch stuff.
Okay.
Where Rogue, comes to terms with the fact that Scarlet Witch did the No More Mutants thing. Mm-hmm. And treating her like shit the whole time and like being really angry at her justifiably. So I kind of like the one they did in that, which is like Havoc, Captain America, Thor, who I could actually take or leave. Yeah. I would replace Thor with somebody else who is strong.
Yeah.
I don't have a good answer for that. I just like the comic as it is. I think I would have a better answer for this if I hadn't read like the run.
Right.
So sorry to cop out.
That's fine.
I'll take Cole's answer as well. That's a great answer.
Okay. You just have to get a good answer on this. You just have to take it all less seriously, I think.
It's very hard for me not to take comic stuff seriously.
Yeah, well, which I'm not saying as a dig on it. It's just like, I don't have any attachments to like the actual narrative, so I can just play around with my action figures.
The Will absolutely got my ass. We were recording, and this episode won't come out for a long time. But like, I'm in stupid guppy mode, being a dumb shit, and then he said something where he's like, gently bad mouthing Waff.
Okay.
In the way that he does, and said something like, getting in some argument about the Shadowrun, SNES Shadowrun being better than the Genesis one. Okay. And I broke his brain because I snapped out of stupid mode to engage with the premise.
Oh no.
And it was like night and day. Like he's like, this is what you sound like when you're actually interested in something I have to say. And there was no lie. I was like, no, that is actually exactly what happened. Like, well, shit. Yeah, no, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Well,
we share will hacks,
Yes, yeah.
Just like, I was talking about some kind of interaction, and I just answered him sincerely, and you said, "Oh, that's a great one."
It's a really good counter. Yeah. Shall we do a couple show questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Just want to make sure we get every type before we move on.
Yes. Yeah.
Jules says, this is a stretch, but hear me out. Have you all considered Taskmaster for adaptation decay? My partner and I are binging it right now, and while it's not a video game, I'm really impressed at the depth of game design work that Alex Horn puts into each task, and I think it would be a fun examination. Many tasks are complex enough that they're essentially silly escape rooms, and the alternate paths to victory are both encouraged and often accounted for in fun ways. If it helps sell the idea, Season 7, Episode 10 asks contestants to recreate a classic video game in real life, so there's your adaptation.
Fuck, man. Fuck.
It's a really good idea.
That's a very good idea.
Taskmaster's great. I've never watched all of it or anything. I'm not like current with it, but I like Taskmaster a lot. Part of the reason why I haven't gotten absolutely current with it is because it fires my play along instinct too hard. I'm like, I would love to be presented with this problem and to solve it. And then I'm watching and the people are doing funny stuff or sometimes clever stuff. And it almost feels like spoilers. Like I want to be put in the situation.
Yeah.
Really badly.
Okay. So it's not a version of like the cut through a kitchen thing where it's like, I want to play along and I think I would do better than them given the circumstances. Like,
I don't necessarily think I would do better. I just think it sounds really fun. Like being presented, like it's an ImSim as a real life game, like being presented with an open-ended problem and just being like, fix it.
Yeah.
That's my dream. That's all I want from games generally.
Yeah.
So it ends up kind of somewhat being hard to watch because I'm like, fuck, and it feels itchy for me.
Yeah.
But that is a great idea. And the one where they recreate a video game scene is a really good idea.
Yeah, write that down on your list because I think that would be really good. I've not watched any task. Oh God, I don't know.
It's all up in my head, man.
Okay,
I don't need to keep lists. It's all up. I keep in the dome. I'm 25 years old. I don't even write my shit down anymore.
Yeah,
I kick it from the head.
Yeah,
I'm not bragging. That's just how I do it.
Okay, no, I just would make a note of that. I guess I'm not telling you to keep a list. I have lists.
Yeah.
I wish that Taskmaster was easier to watch. Earlier today, I was like, where could I watch that? Because I heard the Knowledge Fight guys talk about it. And it's like, it streams on Pluto. I'm like, who the fuck has Pluto?
What a bunch of full episodes on YouTube.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Not all of them, though. And like some of them are clips and everything. But there is a decent trove on YouTube.
Okay. Yeah. They just released a Taskmaster VR game on Quest as well. Which also got me interested. I was like, oh gosh, that would actually be kind of fun to fuck around with. But
yeah. Taskmaster is super sick. One of the things Will is starting to do is do a Taskmaster thing for Duckstream, which I would love, but it's also a lot of work. So I don't judge him for not doing it. It would just be really fun.
Mm-hmm. Holland writes, less of a question and more of a suggestion. You guys mentioned possibly covering shows for adaptation to came by watching the first 2 episodes. I wanted to suggest crowdsourcing top episodes instead so you can get the meat of the content more accurately. For example, if you watch the first 2 episodes of the Netflix Resident Evil series, you'll only get confusing build-up for the end of the season. But if you watch episodes 7 and 8, you'll get treated to some grade A Lance Reddick ridiculousness. Just a thought.
I appreciate the suggestion. I'm incapable of doing stuff like that. I can't skip. It will bother me that I don't know what came before. And that's a me problem. Other people can do it. If something's part of the text, I take it in.
Yes.
It's a disease I have.
Yeah. So appreciate the suggestion, but probably not going to fly.
Yeah. Yep. Malachi says, I recently started listening to the old Duckfeed live shows as I have never gone through them before. Cole mentioned that he doesn't know what he did to avoid being alone with his thoughts before he discovered podcasts. I thought about it and find myself in a similar situation. I first discovered podcasts when THAC, the people who made Marble Hornets, announced their behind-the-scenes production webcast, BNWYDSE.
Come on.
That has a correct pronunciation. That's not an acronym? Binwizides. Do either of you remember what shows first introduced you to the wonderful world of podcast and that would eventually become your job? Secondary question. Do you remember what pushed you to say, I could do this and act on it?
Yeah.
Fun question. For me, it was Retronauts and GFW Radio.
Yeah.
Between the two of them. Retronauts was kind of the first podcast I got into. And then GFW Radio was the first time I was like, I could do this.
Yeah. Same for me, like in terms of like podcasts, like that, it was One Up shows, as well. I liked, I forget, not One Up FM, but the other one,
One Up Yours?
One Up FM was the kids table one. I preferred that one, but also listened to One Up Yours or whatever it was, kind of the big one with like Shane Bettenhausen. There were those, and I picked up listening to those because I ran out of audiobooks that I was interested in at the library when I was working at a very boring office job. But even before that, like I was real interested in, like radio, speech kind of stuff. I was the person who always listened to the talk stations on, playing Grand Theft Auto games, and like even before they were called podcasts, like, uploaded audio clips of like Laszlo's tech show or whatever, just like sitting at the computer listening to those in like 3-minute bursts or whatever. So it was even before that, but didn't decide that I actually could do it until I learned what podcasts were and, listened to One Up FM or whatever that one was. And I was like, oh yeah, this would actually be really fun for my radio show that I do at the college station.
How good was One Up? I miss One Up so bad.
I miss it so much as like, yes, the writing and the output, but just as like a cultural moment where, it was weird because a lot of those people just got like their arm twisted and strong armed to go into making multimedia stuff, but it was all really good. And it was not for the exact same reasons that you get like, now you're a video producer. and when you just want to write articles or whatever. It was just kind of a strange time before like the complete enshittification and like social media-izing of everything,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was an interesting point for it where like on GFW radio, they talked about that all the time, like how much they hated the idea of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, it was this huge chore that they were just kind of coerced into trying, and then ended up finding that they liked it more than the other parts of their job, basically.
Yeah.
They ended up, and they were just like so well suited to it, and it didn't feel the same.
No.
As being pivoted now, it didn't feel like it came from. It didn't feel like it was as much of a demand, even though I don't know if that's true.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that like the companies that owned One Up also sucked.
Yes.
Like Ziff Davis sucks. Those companies suck. I'm not trying to say it was just like wine and roses for them, but at the very least it felt different, or I was more ignorant in my favor.
Yeah.
It was a more innocent time to enjoy it.
Yeah. For like the span of 2 or 3 years, there was no place in the entire world that I wanted to work more.
Yeah.
And now I know people who work there. It's like, oh my God, it was hell. We never got paid. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, we never got paid. Also, all our work just got erased.
Yeah.
It's got flushed down the toilet for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
There are torrents out there. Good luck. And just like, fuck, man.
Yeah.
Venture capitalist can die.
Yeah. Straight to the sun.
Yep. Yeah. That shit sucks.
Yeah. Rick writes, "Hi there, fellas. I'm sure the two of you, like many of us, have at one time or another recorded and published a podcast episode or finished a creative project of some sort and felt wholly unsatisfied with the end result. Do you have any advice on how to, quote, deal or, quote, cope with these feelings? Have your thoughts around self-criticism changed over the years due to the length of time you've been putting out your work or due to the transition from hobby to full-time job? Thanks for your time and your continued dedication to what you do."
No, thanks, Rick.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of this?
By the time you put the thing out, be on to working on the next thing.
Yeah.
Do not give yourself time to ruminate.
Yeah, to have like your postpartum depression.
Yeah.
About stuff. Like I don't in a general sense, I am a big believer that like the to do stuff you have to do stuff.
Yeah.
Which sounds like overly simple, but I just mean ways to avoid perfectionism in the pursuit of never releasing anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have put out podcasts that are not good, and I put out a lot of music that was bad.
Mm-hmm.
When I was younger, when I was first learning to self-record. And like in retrospect, like let's say somebody found one of those and threw it back in my face, I would feel embarrassed. Like it'd be fairly cringy. But I've also embraced I was a fucking kid.
Yeah.
I was 22.
Mm-hmm.
That's 20 years ago. Like it's okay.
Yeah.
I've grown. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. So like at the time, I think I was just enthusiastic. I wasn't stopping to think about, I was creatively fecund in a way that I have not been since.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not stopping to, perfect everything and get out an opus. That felt like too big of a job and misguided to me at the time. And then now I'm just more confident about the stuff that we do because we've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
Like we don't record an episode now where afterwards I'm like, man, we really shit the bed on that.
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a brag. I just think that we've been doing, I'm not saying that everything is absolutely knocking it out of the park, but I don't think we record dog dick that often. I think that like we've achieved a bare minimum of quality that I feel comfortable with, and with the volume, not everything, you could say like, oh, if you're going to do it, you should be trying to knock it out of the park every single time. And that's just not sustainable with the amount of content we put out. And also I don't get to say whether something is good necessarily. That's not really up to me.
Yeah.
Like if I'm talking about a game and everything and I'm being honest and bringing my best self that I can in the moment to it, that's my part of the job. And then then listeners or people who are consuming it can be like, yes, this was great. Or, this episode is okay. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Cause somebody else will be like you'll reverse them and everything. It feels too nebulous to get too wrapped up in for me.
Yeah. It's about doing the work. Yes, is like I always say, and the work is, an individual release. You give it what you can, but it's also the meta structure that you've built up to continue getting the work out. you know? So like I was kind of flip when I said be on to the next thing, but like as opposed to fretting over individual details about what may or may not have been wrong with what you just did, course correct. You know, think about like, okay, how can I avoid repeating that? You know, work on the structure, work on the, you know, the machinery that gets the next thing out so that, you know, success is more replicable, right?
Yeah. And also, I try to keep my thoughts about this kind of thing in proportion to other people as well. Like something like this is, you know, wraps with my other point, but it cuts into what you're saying too, or wraps up with what you're saying too, is the idea that like you can have weird picadillos that are absolutely your own brain, like just talking to you and lying to you.
Yes.
Like you can put out something and be like, this little thing fucking sucks. I cannot believe that you can hear me breathe at 23 seconds and then again at 15 minutes and 43 seconds.
Yeah.
And no one's going to notice it. Like you put that in front of people you trust and say like, is this a big deal?
Yeah.
Does this warrant course correction? You know, because something that we talked about a lot on the show is that course correction is good. You want to strive to improve. Concentrating on course correction too much can make you self-conscious in a way that can kill spontaneity in a way that can be deadly. Like if I'm listening to a podcast and I hear somebody with a vocal tick or misspeak, I notice that less than I notice somebody who is stilted. You know, so you have to pick and choose your battles in terms of what to work on and perfect. And also you want to crowdsource a little bit, at least to trusted people, what is worth inspecting, you know, what is worth working on at all. Yeah. Like what isn't just you seeing a mirage of self-consciousness.
Yeah.
You know,
about 4 years back, got a message from somebody saying, hey, your mouth sounds are, you know, pretty bad. And I was like, okay, well, I don't notice that when I'm listening, so I'll take your advice. You know, I went back and listened to it. I was like, oh yeah, that is pretty bad. And that is, you know, a reason. Oh, I just went and got some, you know, foam microphone, you know, like windscreen kind of things to put, you know, over the end of the mic and before the pop filter. And that has, I hope, mostly solved the problem, right? So, you know, there are some things where it's just like, oh yeah, this is a super easy fix, but you know, it's also not like, you know, one bad episode does not make or break, right? It's not a reason to shut the whole thing down. It's just, all right, well, what's in my power and what's worth actually, you know, listening to other people about, right?
Yeah. And what is, you know, recognizing that everyone has their own individual sensitivities.
Yeah.
For things. People who don't, you know, we've gotten bad reviews or Patreon quits where people get mad about digressions or something like that. That is not, to my mind, is not a flaw. It is not something we made a bad episode or we made a mistake. Yeah. It's part of the intended product. And, you know, that you're not going to find that with mouth sounds or whatever. Right. But just to the point that people have different sensitivities and different things they consider an actual flaw versus just something that's to their preference. Yeah. You know, go into any creative work with the absolute certainty, know this in your soul, that not everything is for everyone. That doesn't mean don't listen to feedback. It doesn't mean you shouldn't try to make something you think people will like, but understand that you're not going to please everybody. No. And that one person saying like, hey, this was rough or whatever, doesn't necessarily represent meaningful numbers. Yeah. It can, but it doesn't necessarily.
Not everybody agrees on what the value proposition of what you make is. So you actually get to define that and your relationship to it. So
yes. Yeah. Shall we move on to lightning round?
Let's. I'll get us started here with Jack, who writes, I just housed an unreasonably large egg foo young patty. What is your favorite use of eggs?
Really, like I said, when I read this in the Patreon, I thought it was an unreasonably large egg foo young party.
Oh yeah. I almost misspoke and said that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like what a weird party that would
be. Fry them over medium and put them on a sandwich. I love an egg sandwich.
I'm going to go part of a scramble or possibly toad in a hole.
Yeah. Toad in a hole is good.
My favorite. Yeah. JC says, nowadays, every state, group, and .com have their own Metal Gear. What does Duckfeed.tv's Metal Gear look like? It's a lot like the one for Zappos.com that they use to do intercontinental shoes. People.
I don't have a lot of opinions about how it looks. Just make it like whichever one is the least often deployed, because I don't leave the house very much.
Yeah. And also we don't like war and
Yeah.
stuff. I used to like it, and then I played those games. And then I recognized, my man's got a point. War does seem to be kind of bad.
Uh-huh.
And then I was like, but I'm not convinced. And then I played another one. And he's like, yeah, war's super bad. I'm like, shit.
Oh.
Well, no, war's pretty good. And then I played another one. And eventually after 5 games and then all the rest of his career and a couple Gundam series, I eventually realized, like, no, that's true.
Yeah.
War is bad.
Yeah.
So now I don't want the Metal Gear.
No. Harrison writes, what's the greatest gift you have given, and what is the greatest gift you have received?
Good question. The gift of my son's life. The day I became a father.
The gift of you listening right now.
Yeah, the gift of our beautiful patrons, which is probably actually true in terms of life-changingness, but that's not the spirit of the question.
Yes. Greatest gift I ever received was when my brother surprised me with that falconry lesson trip thing down to Columbus. That was fucking amazing. I loved that. Greatest gift I've ever given. I'm pretty proud of what I did for my niece regarding her guitar recently.
Yeah. Is she enjoying that?
Oh, yeah.
She's still playing and stuff?
Yep. She's playing
That's
it.
great.
Keeping up with YouTube lessons and stuff.
That's great. Yeah. The greatest gift I have ever received, I've received a lot of good gifts. So I don't know if this is actually the greatest, but just off the cuff. The Brayton got me a one of those mystery mail things, like where you mysterious package of the month type things that was based on.
It makes it sound like it's like all wrapped up in like kind of moist and oily paper and full of loose wires.
It's mostly anthrax.
Yeah.
But it was a King and Yellow based one, so they're kind of like ARGs. Like you get a series of letters and artifacts, and you can kind of figure out the puzzle for them. It came with this dope statue.
Yeah.
And stuff that was really good. And then off the cuff, the best gift I've ever given, I give my wife really good gifts, I think. This year for Christmas, I got her a jackalope. She has always wanted a jackalope, so we have a taxidermy jackalope.
Nice.
Above our fireplace now. And 2 years ago, I got her a customized art of she and I in this style of Stardew Valley.
Oh, that's really cute. Yeah, I remember seeing
cute.
those at your place. Yeah.
Yeah. So the secret to good gifts for everybody listening, Etsy. Customized art will always blow people's minds.
Oh, yeah.
So, also, Gary, welcome, Gary. I have learned a lot of gamer lingo from the show. Ads, verb set, AOE, not to mention fucking verisimilitude. What do you guys mean whenever you describe viewing something as the wireframe?
The basics of a level or a mechanic stripped of all theming.
Yep. So imagine a VR mission. If you play those for Metal Gear again, and if you haven't figured out what war is, I recommend them. But like those have a theming. You're a spy. You're at Shadow Moses, all that shit. But the VR missions are just the mechanics. Like with the shape of the level, what your character can do, regardless of the fantasy.
Yes.
Yeah. Listen to Ducktionary.
Yeah, that's a good plug for that. Somebody actually responded telling them that, but everybody should listen to Ducktionary. Jordan and Maya write, assuming cryptids are not real, which cryptid would you like to put into the world as your little buddy? Assuming the opposite, which cryptid are you most worried about living in your backyards? Third assumption, y'all got backyards.
Okay. That's a good question. If they're real and if they're going to be a little buddy,
yeah.
So I mean that in a literal sense, like they're going to be small. I think a little Mothman would be really nice.
Little Mothman was pretty close to being my top answer on this.
Though cryptids are real and I don't want them in my backyard, I'm going to say Nessie because what a logistical fucking nightmare. Nessie could not live in my yard.
No.
But even though I live on the coast, technically, it's still pretty landlocked comparatively. And I would be on a very fast ticking clock to not have Nessie die on my account.
Right.
And calm Nessie down enough not to destroy the house. And once Nessie did asphyxiate, what do I do?
Just blow him up with dynamite.
Well, it's next to my house. It's a backyard situation.
You
I don't necessarily need to like
shape the explosion, just blow it over everybody who lives behind.
I suppose I could shoot it into the neighbors. It's Arby's problem now. Let Arby's deal with it.
You want the meats?
Yeah. So, for a little bit, I charge 2 bits a gander and make bank.
Mm-hmm.
But after a certain amount of time, I just think the smell.
The smell,
and
Gary.
everything would just get really, you haven't
didn't
thought of the smell.
You didn't consider the smell.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. How about what do you not want in your backyard? What are you NIMBY about in terms of cryptids?
I'm NIMBY in cryptids about the Jersey Devil.
Oh, sure.
The fact that it flies. Gary, I don't want to be dropped onto power lines.
No. Yeah, no.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty bad. To have as a little buddy, I think that the Loveland Frog would be a real party animal.
Yeah. I like the Loveland Frog. I like
Yeah.
the idea. You don't want to make friends with that guy?
The green man?
Yeah, you don't want to make friends with the person you could literally go make friends with?
I think he died. I think he was he was elderly even back when I thought that was the thing. Yeah.
I wish I knew catalog for episodes so I could explain that to people. But I don't. I can't. Yeah, that's in an abject suffering sometime.
Yes, talking
or,
about
or a monster in my podcast.
Maybe
that's in a monster in my podcast.
Yeah, somewhere.
I want to say.
Yeah, just talking about the green man. Who was a guy who just walked along the roads and he was severely disfigured.
Yeah, and Cole referred to him as a cryptid. Not as a joke.
Yeah. Gary, what does Randall say?
Says, how is Jeremy doing? Can we expect an X-Men 97 Days of Future Cast episode? You can. I have had some life stuff and health stuff, and Jeremy's health stuff, not to speak for Jeremy, you can follow him on social media. He talks about this though. I don't feel like I'm spilling the tea, is ongoing, but seems okay. Just for my knowledge, again, don't take that, not trying to tell any tales out of school. He's posted about it. But time has not lined up in terms of things. So every time we record on Fridays and I have had to do stuff on Friday or he has had to do stuff, but that's the next thing we're doing. We're going to do episode by episode. So we're not going to do one episode on X-Men 97. We're going to cover the whole season. Yeah. That is all part of the plan. We're both super psyched. Love X-Men 97. Me and Jeremy are both super psyched about it. Really excited. We just had to find the time to record.
Yes.
And it's just tricky with stuff that's been going on with both of us.
Yeah.
So we appreciate everyone's patience. I'm sorry to put that show on mothballs for so long. It's just, and we appreciate everybody who listens.
Yeah. Man, X-Men 97 is so good.
It's real good.
Yeah.
What a miracle. We're Gary Maxing this year. Follow an X-Men 97. Can you fucking believe it?
Nope. Not at all.
Absolutely Gary Maxing this year. It's great.
Stoned Skeleton asks, what will it take to get Gary to play Alan Wake 2?
It's a great question. I think the first step would be Cole wanting to cover on the show, which I don't think Cole does.
No, I don't care for it.
Yeah, Cole didn't like it, so I'm not the villain in this one.
Wait a minute. Okay, so if I didn't like it,
nobody's a villain for not liking it. It's not me holding you back.
Yeah,
I guess, which is they could say more about me than it does Stone Skeleton, but that is the subtext I read into this.
Right.
Just because I'm cranky about Remedy. So that would be the first thing. If not, though, probably I don't think it's possible. Like if we don't do it for the show, I'm not going to take it upon myself.
Yeah.
I watched the dance number and I'm like, this sucks.
Yeah.
I understand people who think that's awesome and I had no judgment. It made me want to fold myself up in an envelope and send myself to hell. Like I hated it. I was like, this looks like such dog shit. I hate how goofy this is. I hate Baby's first meta stuff. I'm not here for what it's doing implicitly. And I don't think that company has gameplay chops.
Yeah.
Control, we talked earlier about accessibility stuff. I ended up turning on Control one-hit kill mode because I was sick of playing Control. It wasn't even about it being hard. I just didn't want to fight those enemies anymore.
Yeah.
And I think Control's okay. I think Control's interesting. There are things I like about Control. I really rather like the ending.
Yeah.
Lots of interesting short stories. I don't think they know how to do fun gameplay really though.
Yeah.
And in a game, that is most of what you're doing, no matter how cool the concepts are.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. It would be fun.
It
would be fun to tear apart, but too many people fucking love that game, and I don't know. It wouldn't
be a big
be
target. Yeah.
Yeah. It would be fun for me. It would be miserable for Gary, and there's nobody. The audience of people that I would be speaking to with my vitriol is not.
is not very big.
Yeah.
And people who would get frustrated about it. Like that game won a bunch of Game of the Years. It's a huge darling of like the Kotaku set. In that respect, like there are people who would has shooters, as you say.
Yes. Well,
Gabriel says, when you guys were young, did you read Frog and Toad? Have any favorite stories? Mine are Cookies and a Swim. I relate to Toad. I'm sure I did read some Frog and Toad and watched a cartoon adaptation, but I don't have strong memories of it.
No, my favorite Frog and Toad related thing is a Brad Neely comic, just a one panel of the Frog and Toad out on a rowboat, and the caption at the bottom is just "I hate this world, Dr. Frog."
Yeah.
I think I hate this world, Dr. Frog is one of the funniest things in the world. I think it all the time.
These seem like good kids. Like I bet you that is wholesome and good. It just wasn't what I read as very much as a kid.
Yeah. For time's sake, do we want to leave some leftover lightning rounds?
We never leave lightning rounds. So let's leave some lightning rounds because we've got a lot of them.
Yes.
So yeah, we get on to our topic because time.
When we talked about the work earlier, and our topic is kind of related to it. This, I think, is, we make allusions to it every once in a while, but Cody writes, I can see that you guys put a lot of energy into being good critical thinkers, and you do a great job of acknowledging your personal biases towards the media you review on your shows. I deeply appreciate the proactive transparency, as well as the effort you put into clarifying when a critical view on something does not necessarily mean it's objectively bad, but rather something that simply does not appeal to your tastes. That being said, what are some of the most challenging parts of the process when constructing an opinion around media or games? And factors that they list, and we can even just use this as a rubric here: mood or mental health, bias towards an initial disinterest, nostalgia or historical context, something that panders to your interest but isn't actually good, popular opinions / discourse / hype. How do you recognize if you aren't being entirely emotionally and or intellectually honest with yourself in the moment, and what are some ways that you can get ahead of it?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
I would say in general, I throw out two blanket caveats over this whole thing. For me, and I don't want to speak for you in this, but one, probably to an amount that doesn't reflect well on me, some of what you're talking about is caused by not wanting to be yelled at.
Yes.
Some of the things about being clear and possibly overly clear about being like, we don't like something, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's objectively bad, is not wanting to, when I say pithily be yelled at, but really it's not worth hurting somebody's feelings over.
Yeah.
Like, I think if you put a gun to my head and ask me what I actually think, I think if you have your feelings hurt over somebody saying a game is bad, that is ultimately on you.
Yeah.
I think that's something you can grow out of. At the same time, somebody not growing out of that does not mean I need to hurt their feelings or make them feel bad. I don't want anyone to have a bad day.
Yeah.
Based on stuff. That's not worth it. I just don't like how that feels, coming out of my mouth. And people will, the times we've gotten feedback around that, people come with real genuine hurt over it. And rather than choosing it to be my job to decide if that hurt is genuine and justified, if I can try to ameliorate it with a sentence, I will.
Yeah.
Is kind of how I feel. That annoys people as well. There are people who don't like that. And I don't necessarily know that's the right approach. It's just what makes sense in my gut because I don't like hurting people's feelings. Like I used to be judgier about media than I am now. I used to be worse about that kind of thing, especially growing up. Just like blanket, like this sucks.
Yeah.
No elaboration, no thought. That was a real thing. I think that's fairly common for teens.
Yeah.
But I used to be pretty bad about that. And it's something I have tried to be better about in that respect.
Yeah. It's a little bit like customer service in advance.
Yes.
A little bit. I also do not know, or have a reckon on how valuable that is. For me, it also comes from a desire to explain.
Yes.
To at least, to at least demonstrate, how I came to this conclusion, or to just say like, yeah, there's just a block here that I'm not going to get over. Right. There's just a total disinterest that, like, it's a 30 difficulty check. right? Like it's not impossible for this to happen, but it is just incredibly unlikely. And the thing that the thing that is trying to make that check needs a lot of modifiers in its favor to actually make that happen. Right. Yep. So just to say, like, yeah, I'm going to be really difficult to impress with this because it's working against some headwinds. And also I think that it helps properly shade my critique if I, say, okay, this is why I'm feeling this, this is why I came to this conclusion. It's kind of like saying, okay, the camera came with this lens and I'm not going to change it out. So I need to clarify that I'm shooting with a fisheye lens here. That guy doesn't actually look like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I was shooting some rad skating videos.
Yes.
Before. And I don't want to I can't go home and change the lens.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, the other blanket thing I would say, like I would agree with that. The other blanket thing I would say is in terms of getting out ahead of it is that when I am playing the game and in the time leading up to the episode, I am doing all of this work in the background in my brain.
Yes.
The way the show has absolutely completely changed the way that I play video games and consume media to where now I've always been given to thinking about why I think something is good or bad. Now it is something that I can't not do here. And also that can be detrimental, right? So like that is part of why I can't ignore things that really bug me as a thing. It's just, I'm thinking about it too much. It's there. I'm not here to ignore the game. I'm here to pay attention to it. So when somebody says, like, I'm like, oh, this thing really sucks. And someone's like, well, you can kind of skip it. Or like, oh, I didn't really remember that part. I'm like, I remember all the parts. I don't skip things. Like it is, I have to think about it. It's just kind of what I've trained my brain to do.
Yeah.
So sometimes, because I'm thinking about it so much, it's easy to get out ahead of things because I can be like, I know this is a thing that is bothering me probably more than it bothers anyone else. I'm just, try to be self-aware about that kind of thing, I guess.
Yeah.
And it just, I build it up over time. It just happens as a background process that is constantly running.
And I think a lot of this ends up getting worked into the structure of what we do, which is, or just we have little ways of explaining that, this is kind of always going to be a feature of our work, which is like, oh, you judge what's on the plate. Right.
Yeah. Yep. I'm happy with that approach.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that common. Is part of the reason why I'm happy with it. I think that in a lot of criticism, review, and analysis, there is a lot of hitting the high points.
Yeah.
Of things. One of the reasons why I like Will's games writing, Will of Everything to Guppy, my friend, he's the head of games writing at AV Club. He just did a review on a Shin Megami Tensei re-release.
Yes.
I can't remember which one it is.
Shin Megami Tensei 5 Justice or whatever it is.
Something like that.
Remake that is not exclusive to Switch.
Yes. And he wrote a review. He likes those games. But in the review, he acknowledged, he's like, this game is 10% these fights I really love and 90% walking. And the walking is really bad.
Yep.
And I feel like if I covered that game for the show, I would probably harp on the walking longer than he did. But he acknowledged it. Whereas when I read other reviews, they're not even paying attention to that.
Yeah.
Like, he at least does a little bit of what's on the plate thinking. And it's just a value that I bring to things. Like, of course it matters. You spend 90% of your time walking. How can that not matter?
Yeah.
It's most of the game. Of course it matters. Yeah. Like it always surprises me that is not part of a conversation when people are talking about games as much that they feel it is virtuous and they are able to do a zoom in on the things that are most interesting about the game to them. And then just expand on those things while eliding so much of what is there.
Yeah.
I have a really hard time with that. It doesn't feel natural to me.
Something else that I liked about Will's approach to that review when he promoted it, he said, hey, here's this review of something that I played that I probably was a little bit more gentle on because I was depressed when I played it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
That gets to like the mood and mental health thing. The positive example of that is like, I'm going to cop to that because I'm a human playing this and anybody consuming this game is also a human,
Yeah.
And so, how a game interfaces with being human is a pretty important part of critiquing it.
Yeah, it's a thing too. So, and I will call this out when I recognize it. And again, it's because of that background process.
Yeah.
Right. Like I talked about going through like health stuff and everything while I was playing Tunic.
Yep.
And that probably influencing my mood. We're going to do Quake, and I'm looking forward to giving Quake an honest shot. I played it when I was younger, but I never went deep on it. I'm probably going to feel a lot warmer towards that game because it's a big action game where people don't talk at me for a long time.
Yes.
It's going to come right after Paper Mario. So it is going to feel like that's going to improve my mood, and that is going to influence my rounding.
Yeah.
I just know that it will. Like when I talk about this in shows, it's when I say like right game, right time.
Yeah.
Like this is maybe not that, super objectively great, but God, what a right game at the right time. For me, that's mood and mental health stuff.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. And, part of that is like for anybody else, if you are not feeling that game that you're playing it right now, you can put it off.
Yeah.
And for us, I can't remember a time when we said like, hey man, we just can't it's on the schedule. And I don't know. I'm not in a place for this. So let's not do it. We just can't put it off. Right.
We've done it before.
Yeah.
But not very often.
Yeah.
We've done it before with Blood Omen.
Oh,
famously.
Yeah.
I didn't finish. Neither of us finished Sacrifice.
Okay.
So we didn't put off the episode. We just bailed.
Yeah.
We covered part of it. We have a bonfire side chat about basically the first chapter of Returnal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things like that. Like that will happen for us, but it's rare and it's harder to do on WAF because we have Patreon picks, patron picks for that. A lot of times, if this wasn't the job, at the point where I get to where this is going to seriously impact my mood is the point that if I were just playing for fun, I would quit.
Yeah.
No, without question, without hesitation. I no longer go down with the ship with media,
right?
Unless I have to. I no longer find that virtuous.
Yeah. When I said we've never put something off because we just weren't feeling it or whatever, I mean because of bad mental health weather at a particular time.
Oh, got you.
Maybe something has come up in our personal lives related to sickness or something where we had to do a shuffle. But those things that you cited there were, actually because of something about the game itself more than anything.
Yeah. It wasn't.
Right.
So I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
I think that's a function of us being better about planning out in advance.
Yeah.
Than we used to be.
It's a skill we had to develop pretty quick. Yeah.
Yeah. Got to there. And now we are planned out as far as we've ever been planned out. Like the rest of this year is slated.
Yeah.
Basically. So that will happen sometimes. Thinking about, bias towards an initial disinterest, that's a little tougher because we pick things. So, and again, not necessarily speaking for you, but the way I feel about it is that if we're disinterested enough, we just don't put it on the schedule.
Yeah.
So if that bias is hard enough, it doesn't get through. Excuse me. Once it gets through, usually if we pick it up and it's fun after we try it, Yahtzee.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much for me to shake that off.
Yeah.
So for example, we did Cerbante this month, that I have become less interested over time in visual novel formats, as a thing. I was into it. It looked interesting enough, but I was also like, a game that is pure text is not necessarily my favorite thing in the world. I probably had a little bit of initial disinterest. It got enough to get through, but then once I started playing it and kind of saw what it was doing, I really loved it.
Yeah.
It was not hard to shake off that initial disinterest because that disinterest was born of a lot of assumptions I was making.
Yeah.
About prose styles, basically.
This is funny because this almost always works in the game's favor. And we have to say, I don't know, if you're coming at this and you really love this kind of game, this may not be a surprise to you. But for me, I initially was thinking about this like it was a medieval life sim, kind of thing. And then, I was pleasantly surprised because it ended up it ended up being way cooler than it sold itself. Right.
Yeah.
Initial disinterest into I play this and it's actually kind of cool. That is like a positive weight more often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if there's enough initial disinterest, it never gets played.
Yeah.
We've said this before. When patrons pick things, they pick multiple picks and we choose them. When we do our picks, we run them by each other. When we have an empty spot in the schedule, we collaborate. To figure out what to put there. So we're not doing something that won't clear that initial bar. It doesn't mean everything is going to ultimately be a winner once we do it, but it means that there's a threshold.
Yes.
There.
No. Nostalgia or historical context, I feel like we're pretty clear on that. And, that falls into some things are fungible and some aren't,
Yes.
It's I might love this because of an experience I had that nobody else is going to have. So that needs to be, I'm not going to pretend that I don't like it, that doesn't factor in there. I just need to disclaim that. So it's pretty clear, and if I don't have nostalgia for something, it's like, you just have to say, sorry, I don't, I don't have the catalog on this that you do.
Yeah, it's Crash Bandicoot. To me. Like, I didn't play this a lot on my PlayStation 1. I didn't like wear out a demo disc for it. So this concept of this doesn't feel fun to me. It doesn't, I wasn't raised with it, with the antibodies.
Yeah.
I feel like as I've gotten further in the job and a little bit older, nostalgia works on me less when it's not coupled with something I would like anyway.
Yeah.
Like, my favorite expressions of nostalgia are when I'm nostalgic for something and then I play it and it holds up.
Yes.
That's a triumphant feeling in gaming for me. I'm just like, fuck, man, this is actually, like, we did Super Mario World, and I played that game so many times as a kid, played it since as well, but playing it and being like, you know what, this is gonna be fun to talk about. This game is fucking good.
Yeah.
That felt great. I didn't have to do any rounding for nostalgia.
No.
With that. Because I've gotten worse at rounding for nostalgia than I used to be. I don't necessarily think of it as a skill, but I'm less inclined to do it.
There's also the fact that, like, we've been doing this show for an extremely long time. I can't think of too many things I'm like super nostalgic for that we haven't covered in some form or fashion, or, ruled out. Like, I'm super nostalgic for Chrono Cross, but like, I'm not going to do that to you.
I can't play it.
Yeah.
It kills my eyes.
Yeah.
I would love to do the Magic the Gathering Microprose game, but asking you to learn an entire card game's rules for this thing that is its own hobby with its own like things is too much.
Yeah.
I have a ton of nostalgia for that. I play it. It's always installed on my computer, but it would be a weird pull. You said something in there that I think is interesting though, where it's the ineffables.
Yeah.
So like, it's something I wouldn't mind, talking about next month on Dispatch, talking about ineffables in this, like charm, things like that. Like, what do we mean when we say charm? What do we mean when we say good writing?
Yeah.
Like, I think drilling down to what those things mean is useful. And I've been wrapped around the axle on it because of Paper Mario.
Right.
But like, when we run into something that is non-fungible, that you cannot transfer to another person.
Yeah.
That causes an issue, and we like to disclaim that as well.
Yes.
We can do like something like a Bug Snacks, which like I found, there's things I like about Bug Snacks. I did not find the dialogue from the humans in that funny or charming. No. Particularly. I just like the critters and the weird twist that takes at the end. I know other people who love that, who they really liked the people.
Yeah.
They liked getting to know the characters. They thought they were good characters, had interesting stories, were well sketched and stuff. I could say why they didn't feel good to me, but it's not fungible. Yeah. That is one of those things where I'm like, I can tell this is meant to be charming. Charm is a weird magic spell that just works on some people and doesn't on others. It didn't work on me. Yeah. This thing. Yeah. So, being aware of when something is ineffable, I think, is useful.
Moving on to something that panders to your interests but isn't actually good. I feel like I can be pretty clear. I'll just say, like, this feels like it should be made for me, but it fucks it up. It trips.
I imagine Hexcrank has given you all the the practice for this in the world.
Oh God, yeah.
Because everything you do on that show is panders to your interest. But you also play a lot of dog shit.
Oh God, yeah.
On it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I think about that too. That will pop up, and it's just that's just self-awareness, right? Like the journey of doing this job and being a critic, I think, is a large portion of it is self-discovery, which makes it sound very navel-gazing and insular, but it kind of is. Yeah. You have to know your own values and know yourself really well to confidently discuss a perspective that you have. Yeah. Where else is it going to come from? And after doing it long enough, we get that perspective. Yeah. Like I know I know myself. So I know if something's pandering to me, I know if it's something that seems like I should like it. Yeah. I know what it's trying to do there. And then I also know my experience with it. Yeah.
And knowing it is the first step to figuring out how to communicate it effectively. Right.
Yes. Yeah. A good example of something that, is not actually very good, but still panders to me is the Call of Cthulhu game. Yeah. That Jack sponsored, that we had Jack on. Nothing could pander to me more. Technically based on the tabletop game. I probably did some rounding in that, but I tried to be clear-eyed about the fact that it has a lot of problems.
Yes.
Like it's ultimately not a super good game. Like it is a charitable low 7 out of 10, I think.
Yeah.
Probably.
The best spin that the theme could put on that is going from like a letter grade to a letter grade plus, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, thinking about popular opinions and discourse and hype, I think this is, out of all these things, probably the thing that I personally am worse at. And it's in being contrarian.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I read some people singing the praises of something for a very long time, in some cases for like decades, right?
Yeah.
Like reading people talk about Mass Effect 1 for decades. Not decades, but like a decade.
Yeah.
Quite a long time, and then playing it, I am very susceptible to like this is your god, as a feeling. And that is, historical opinions, historical context, and then also just popular consensus, like meeting many people with Mass Effect tattoos,
Yes,
and shit, and just being like this. I'm pretty bad at. I try to, keep that in mind. I try to disclaim it, but I don't think I'm good at not letting it sway my opinion.
Yeah.
Which is another way of saying like disappointment.
Yeah.
Right. Like having a reputation that it doesn't earn. We can't go into things like fresh, to this earth. We're people in the world. We're going to learn what people think of stuff.
Yeah.
And as professionally and just personally, I want to read what people think about stuff. Even if I don't agree with it, like I wanted to read all of those articles about Mass Effect.
Yes.
It wasn't something that happened to me. I didn't have to do it. I wanted to. And it colored me because of course it did. Because at some degree, as much, I'm porous, at least to some degree.
Yeah, we do exist in the world, and we can try our best to sandbox and take the game out of the context of everything around it, be it hype, be it discourse. A thing that I am bad about is not holding something's very annoying fans against it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is petty. That is small, but it's something that is difficult for me to see and account for, and something.
And yet you like Undertale.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Maybe those fans don't annoy me as much, or I'm very conscious about not noticing those folks, right? Regardless, I think that this just gets to something which is like a kind of a thing about biases is that by default you don't notice them. They feel like they're just part of they're just part of the way things work until they're pointed out. And until it is challenged, I guess. So like, step 1 is identifying it. Step 2 is getting it out.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Discourse is an interesting part of this. When something gets really discoursed, because this is the side of this I think we're okay at.
Yeah.
Because we try to, or at least I try to, if we've decided to cover something, it is past a certain threshold of problematic, lacking problematizing elements.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like we're not going to cover something that's straight up transphobic, but like on Unfilmable, we did Late Night with the Devil. That produced incalculable discourse.
Yes.
About the use of AI images. We in the episode were like, that's silly to do that, but we would have said that anyway. And we're pretty good about not letting that tank, and I don't feel like we rounded that movie up because it didn't get a fair shake of the discourse either.
No.
I think we just, we're clear-eyed about that.
Yeah.
This is a good B. It's fine. Solid B.
Yeah. It's a real solid B. When you say like, it would be silly to do that, do you mean, it was silly for them to use the AI images, or it'd be very silly to hold the AI images against it, or both?
I mean both, but I meant the latter.
Gotcha.
Like it would be silly to tank that movie and talk about it during the discussion of that movie, and just be like, the dialogue sucked. Also, there were AI images, 3 of them, and just add that little rider to everything we said.
Yeah.
It is cleared a certain amount of non-material harm.
Yeah.
Like to the degree that like all things, I don't think AI images don't do material harm, but it wasn't like, what is that boomer shooter where you're in a mall that looked really good, but the developer Ion Fury. Yeah. The developer hit a bunch of homophobic, transphobic shit in the levels, and then kind of doubled down on it when called on it, and then eventually took it out, I think, because of demand, but we're kind of shitty about it. Like that doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
So we just don't do it.
Yeah.
Like it's just not going to get to our level of doing it.
Yeah. And just, anything related to, discourse, hype, people really building something up. It's all priming, right?
Yeah.
And being aware of something, just the famous experiment, like I think it was a Soviet thing where it's like you take what is basically a static image of somebody's face. And depending on what you juxtapose it against, like it either becomes a happy face or a really like horrified face, or like in filmmaking, often
montage.
Yeah, well, there's montage, but there's also like the reason we see reaction shots in dialogue is in order to inform the audience how to feel. Right.
Yeah.
So like we're seeing the reaction shots, we're being primed, things are being framed all the time. And being aware of the effect that has, informs the kind of critical distance that you need from it. Right.
Yeah. It's the reason why when I worked at PSU, no matter what would happen in my office, I just made the gym face generally. I've been primed to just do that no matter what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Kid falls over, hits themselves. Uh-huh. They don't know. Then, like they're probably going to get really upset if their parents run over and say, "Oh my God, are you okay?" If the parent runs over and it's like, "Hey, what's going on?" They're probably not going to cry. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's we're not immune to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
A lot of this comes down to just that kind of self-awareness and then screening for things before we cover them.
Mm-hmm.
To not, if we think that we can't do an okay job of this stuff before we go into it, we usually don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, why do we not prioritize doing BattleTech, even though it's a strategy game by a developer that we love, the strategy games that they've made? So I don't know, like,
well, it's 40 hours long.
That's the
big reason, I think. That would have been a Gary pick a couple times over if it wasn't.
Yeah. It's 40 hours long. B, like, there are a lot of turn-based strategy games that we can play where we're not working against, I think you feel it more than I do, but I also feel it, just kind of a little bit of apathy toward giant robot shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A weird thing with BattleTech is I'm a little bit more into BattleTech than that. I had a little bit of a BattleTech thing in school.
Okay.
And they're like only a little bit bigger than person size. For some reason that makes a difference to me. If they're bigger than a city, I think that's stupid.
Yeah.
If they're power armor, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I just think it just feels less unbelievable and dumb to me. And it's also, again, though, developer and tactics and stuff. Like I would swallow that for BattleTech. I just wish it wasn't, I think it's 36 hours.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit of a tough meatball.
Mm-hmm. So
that old expression.
getting this, just around to talking about like basic principles on this. It is like, okay, establishing critical distance and how important that should be. All of this being based around, self-awareness and also, being aware that biases inherently you cannot identify all of them that you have, and not all of them can or should be surmounted. Right.
Yeah.
And just figuring out what to disclaim. Yeah.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Let's move on to responses.
Let's a little bit light on responses here, which is good because we went a little bit long.
It's been a long episode.
It has been long. Yeah. Also, like we did a last minute swap on one of these. We had a couple of Project Snowblind ones, but
I'm sorry to Project Snowblind fans. Again, it will show up.
It will
at some point.
Yeah. I'll get started here. We're talking about the life and suffering of Sir Bronte. There are some things that might be considered spoilers, but they are dynamics that are established in the very beginning of the game. So, be aware if you're aware, but like none of this is like super surprising anyway.
Not more spoiling than the episode was.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Callum writes, thanks heaps for the coverage of this. I had never heard of it before. Due to the nature of my current work, dealing with tragedy like this in my gaming time just isn't viable for me currently. I have popped this onto my future list, and in the interim, the episode as a service was very much appreciated. I swear I didn't do that intentionally. This person did the thing that we haven't done. Yeah.
I have a bottomless appetite for tragedy.
Yes.
Personally, like I'm not affected by media this way.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm sitting down to watch TV, what's more common is like, I can't watch something new.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm at that level, I have to watch Simpsons or something I've seen before.
Yeah.
But I'm never like, oh, this subject matter is too bleak. It just isn't my nature.
I don't know what Callum does for a living, so I'm not going to. Yeah,
that's true.
So
there was no judgment I had.
Yeah.
But it's like I'm not, working in the morgue.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. Yeah. Either. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
KR says, Overall, I agree with what you said about how mechanics and the narrative intertwine. However, there are a few points where it didn't quite work together. The most egregious example was in my playthrough, which is very similar to yours, especially Gary's, came at the end of Chapter 4, Peacetime. It just so happened that after the scene in which Robert adopted Gloria, the family's unity finally dropped to 0, mostly due to my conflict with Stefan. So in the very next scene, I was informed that the remaining family members no longer have anything in common. Everybody went their separate ways, never to see each other again. What? My relationship with Gloria was maxed out throughout the whole playthrough, and she and Robert were closer than ever. The only person who didn't like the rest of the family was Stefan, and he never left to return in the last scene. It was incredibly abrupt. It's been a while since I played, but I don't think anybody but Robert shows up to this event. Clearly unintended, and took me right out of the story.
Yeah. It's like, sure, you can join the band. We're breaking out tomorrow, but you can join the band.
I could see this as a thing that didn't happen to me, so I don't want to speak to being taken out of the story because it sounds, like it would be. I can see a little bit of verisimilitude in this when I think about how families really work.
Yeah.
Where, you think about the mother who really cares about the family unity here, and having, a couple people who like each other in a family, but the unit being destroyed feel like separate things to me.
Yeah.
Or conceivably separate things. Again, I would have to have that exact thing happen to know how I'd react to it in the moment. But I don't know. I think that sometimes an estranged person in the family can really fuck it up because some people like that member and some people don't. And I think that can dissolve something's strength as a unit.
Yeah.
In my headcanon, if I were playing that, I'd be like, I still get along with Dad and Gloria.
Yes.
It's just, they no longer live there because the family's no longer a family.
Yeah. And in this world, the family is a political entity too. It is not just a group of people who happen to share a house and some blood. So
yeah, it's a house. It's a capital H house, not just a lowercase house.
Yeah. But I could, that those two things being presented back to back, do read as completely incongruous. And I can see that really clanging. Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah. Luke says, I was immediately enamored with this game, which I had dully assumed would be a simple medieval life sim, but turned out to have a strange and fascinating world, which reconfigured how I approached many of my choices. Religion, for example, is a much more sensible path if you are able to meet your maker at a young age after suffering a lesser death at your grandfather's hands. Then comes Chapter 4, and a souring of my experience. Having played intuitively, I now found myself with a subpar build and was constantly 1 point short of unlocking the decision that would get me the point needed to unlock the decision that would, etc., etc. Eloquence apparently was of no use for me as a lotless. Skills could not translate to other fields, and the requirement tide is almost impossible to catch up with once you've fallen behind. The game lets you know that you won't be able to achieve everything you want, but at a certain point I could no longer achieve anything, and the options for retrying and revealing consequences felt inadequate or invalidating. I could replay hours of game, min-maxing my choices this time, but I couldn't salvage my story. The mechanics went from enhancing the unique narrative experience to supplanting it, which is a shame. I wonder if a system such as this needs some flexibility. Perhaps willpower could be burnt to grant you a temporary boost to a stat, or perhaps there needs to be a dice roll involved to allow for luck along with rigor. I will play again one day to see some other path, but I don't like that I will now have to do so with my focus on sticking to a plan from birth rather than simply swinging with the punches, as I tend to do in unsimmed life.
Yeah, that sounds frustrating.
Yeah.
For sure. I didn't have that experience, which I know is cold comfort to anything like this.
Mm-hmm.
It felt satisfying to me because I was able to do a mix of things. Yeah. I think both those ideas for ameliorating it are good. I think burning willpower for a stat bonus or for a die roll bonus would be welcome. I'm going to stand against that. Okay. And leave the show if you disagree. No, no. I just, because I remember, in the episode, I talked about how I really appreciated that there was no die roll happening with anything, that it was deterministic. So there's no die roll, rather than a die roll, I guess I just mean a general amelioration thing.
Yeah.
If you were giving up willpower to push through a thing, you'd still be giving up a resource that you would need later.
Right.
So I don't think that would lend itself too much to min-maxing.
I also really like in the game, and again, thinking back to the episode, we talked about this, like there are some challenges and there are some things that, you can want them all you want, but circumstances are not, like you can expend all the willpower in the world and it will not change what's actually, gonna happen. Related to choices you made in the past or just inherent limitations. I like that. As unsatisfying of a story and experience that created for Luke.
I'm just trying to think of something that would split the difference so you don't literally dead end yourself.
Yeah.
As a thing, because I agree that dead ending and starting at the beginning of the chapter or having to rebuild from the start with intentionality in terms of min-maxing is the polar opposite of what you want to be doing in this game.
Yeah.
Like that, you may as well not play it at that point. I think that like kills it. So there should be something in between the experiences we had, which were tragedies, but we didn't feel that kind of intense helplessness because of past decisions, or we felt it occasionally.
Yeah.
I liked how I felt it occasionally. I liked how I'd really like this, but I already fucked up.
Yeah.
But if I just felt like I could not change my stats and I could not no longer had agency in the world because I had made decisions a couple chapters ago and I had to redo that would be too bad.
Yeah. It's a long game,
Yes. Rereading has horrible replay value.
Yes.
Generally. So I don't know what the answer is specifically. I agree with you in terms of those things working out really well for me. I'm just trying to think if there is in a tabletop sense, there would be some kind of like feats or something.
Yeah.
There are, resources you can give out. And I'm not saying I want there to be like Professor Layton coins you can click on in the images that give you something, like nothing like that.
Yeah.
It just feels like there should be some way not to dead end yourself.
It might even just be like I expend willpower, like there's, some kind of event or there's a repeatable event or something where it's like I can use willpower almost as like an experience point to say, what I want to do right now is actually, like buff up this or use willpower to convert this, this kind of useless stat that I ended up with, knowing what lot I want to get. That also might be a way, you expend willpower to get better at this thing because, there are talents and there are skills. Right?
Yeah. You couldn't do a respec because that would make it feel meaningless. Yeah. But having something where you could spend, and it could be harsh, like, spend like 5 willpower to transfer a point from one stat to another.
Yeah.
It could be a hardy cost. Like I'm torn between not wanting Luke to have that experience and also not wanting to give up like the beautiful experience I had.
Yes.
And when I say I'm torn, I don't want to, like my own experience is prime in terms of my memory, but from a game design angle, I'm thinking like, is there a way to have both?
It's also a matter of signaling too, which is like, I played this game, role playing in the first 2 chapters, deciding like, okay, what do I as a character value, right? As I am learning this world and then making the choices or having the choices made for me based on that. I was not, rolling into it thinking, all right, I'm going to, okay, this is a little bit of a lie because we talked about me taking the lot list. The lot list is what I would have ended up with anyway. Right.
Yeah.
So I think signaling about like which is cart and which is horse would solve some of these problems. And there is some signaling, like when you are, getting your stats, it says like, all right, this stat is going to be the most useful for this path. This stat is going to be most useful for this path. Yeah.
Or literally, for most checks in this chapter, you're going to need a 10 and the hardest checks are going to require a 15.
Yeah.
Or a 20. Like it does tell you that kind of stuff, but I can understand being frustrated if you're trying to work towards those things and those options were actually grayed out.
Yeah.
Maybe having reduced stat requirements for choices that change stats specifically.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it feels like there might be something there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but we're not game designers.
Nope.
Yeah. So, moving on to Neon Struct responses. Fran says, no Project Snowblind? Sure, I can talk about Neon Struct for a bit. Also, I'm Dutch, so screw you too, Cole.
I don't remember what this is in reference to. I think I
don't remember either.
I maybe made a joke about picking some European country to have a grudge against. I have no feelings about the Dutch, aside from the past crimes.
You don't like them? Okay. I see.
Aside from the past
you don't
crimes
respect
of
their culture,
of your colonial enterprises, but individual Dutch people, I am a well wisher and that I wish you no harm.
Franz continues. I picked up Neon Struct close to launch as we had a real drought of immersive Sims back then. There wasn't an indie space providing us with games like Weird West or Cruelty Squad. Yes, Cole, the Dutch know immersive Sims. The game offered exactly what I needed at the time, a quick, bite-sized ImSim experience, and I regularly go back to it every now and then. But then I'd hope this world would be the start of the entire series of small ImSims exploring different facets of the genre, but it wasn't to be. But still, with interesting upcoming games like Sorceress and Skin Deep, it might happen. Fun fact, the lead designer for Project Snowblind, Zach McClendon, went on to work on BioShock 2, which indirectly spawned this game.
Huh.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
All roads lead to BioShock 2.
Yep.
All good things came out of BioShock 2. It's fucking wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. The best BioShock created a lot of the other best games.
Yes.
Other than We Happy Few, which my understanding is dog shit.
Yeah. And We Happy Few feels a little bit more like an Infinite thing to me.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's a personnel thing. That has huge Infinite stink on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Alex writes, Neon Struct is a remarkably solid experience. I enjoyed the freeform nature of the missions, and I'm always down for a spy thriller plot. I also had an oh shit moment when I found the room with the masks. That and the strangers on each level added a layer of eeriness to an otherwise straightforward plot. Special praise should go to the soundtrack as well. It's one of the more memorable aspects of the game. I'm not sure that the ImSim genre is shrinking, though. While no big banner ImSim releases have come out for a long time, 2023 provided a remarkable number of great indie ImSims, such as Shadows of Doubt, Blood West, and Thief the Black Parade mod, just to name a few. Thanks for all the great podcasting. I'm a longtime listener and appreciate all the work you guys do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What this tells me is that I need to play Blood West.
Yeah.
Weird West. Whichever one is the one that's the overhead ImSim.
No, that's Weird West is that one. Blood West is also good. It is like a first-person ImSim thief, thief, but with shotguns and zombies kind of thing.
Yeah, gotta play that.
There are too many games that have West as the second word.
It's like bands with wolf in the 2000s.
Right. Yeah.
Or bear or deer. I also, what is it we have coming up? Roger, the one we're both interested in, the horror ImSim thief like.
Oh, Gloomwood. Yeah.
Gloomwood's coming out soon.
Yeah.
Too. Like some stuff's happening.
Yeah.
Which is good. Like, I'm glad that some indie devs are taking it up the torch for sure.
I mean, man, I've been intending to play Shadows of Doubt forever. That looks fucking amazing.
It looks great.
Yeah. And they should have called Thief the Black Parade literally anything else.
Yes. Nothing has made me less interested in that mod than it being My Chemical Romance song. Moving on to responses about Link Between Worlds. Zane says, I didn't realize I would get rewards for turning in the snail kids unless I got all of them. So I didn't bother until I was almost done with the game. Oops.
Yeah.
This is the item upgrade path where you get rewards for every 10 of them. There are 100 of them in the game.
Yeah. So. It's not very well signaled.
No,
I will say.
There's also, I'm going to throw this out here. I wonder if anyone brings up in responses. This is real silly for me to say it now. We missed a whole thing.
Did we?
There's a challenge tower that you can go through to get money and upgrades for the last two items. Your net and your lantern get upgraded if you complete that. I just forgot to mention it because I didn't do it.
Yeah, I ran up to it and was like, here's our 100 floor, and then I was gone.
I went to sleep. There are, the way that you get upgrades in that is not signaled super well. I would agree.
Yeah. From Zero Dark Thoughty, who sponsored that episode, says, Hey guys, thank you for agreeing to cover A Link Between Worlds, a truly underrated gem. I'll go to bat for most games in the Zelda series, but almost all of them have a gameplay loop, mechanic, or section that ends up dragging some immense highs down to some extreme lows. Thankfully, A Link Between Worlds, while lacking the defined art style of a Wind Waker or the uniqueness of a masked Majora, offers an engaging and streamlined experience. The tight controls, the music, much of it on loan from A Link to the Past, and the ability to tackle most dungeons in any order makes this a breezy blast to pick up and play, something that can be said about few entries in the series. While not especially challenging, the game wormed its way into my heart by being the perfect bite-sized snack for someone with very little time to dedicate to something sprawling and perhaps undercooked, like Breath of the Wild.
Give me more bite-sized Zelda games.
Gary, I'm so fucking pissed because we spent all that time during that episode talking about like, oh, this is probably going to be the last original portable Zelda we're going to get. Like, this is an experience that they're just not going to do. Then literally, like right before we recorded this episode, before that episode comes out, they made fools of me, Gary. They pantsed me with Echoes of Wisdom.
Yeah, even though that's portable, like it's on Switch, so it's. Our point still kind of stands.
Our point still kind of stands, but it is not Breath of the Wild. It is modeled after this or
old school
Link's
Zelda,
Awakening.
but still, it's still on the Switch, so it can still be either or.
I mean, portable in spirit, portable at heart, right?
Yes. Yeah. I hope that's good. I still don't. I don't know. I'm still skeptical of it. I don't like. I like Link's Awakening. Obviously, I like that game.
Yeah.
It still doesn't take the big swings that I want. That I feel like Link Between Worlds does.
I haven't seen like the video, like the video of what it is. I just saw that they announced it. So
yeah, I watched the trailer this morning. It looks neat, but again, I'm skeptical. I'm going to need more information. Yeah. Like Zelda is no longer an auto trust for me.
Yeah.
It's cool that you can play as Zelda. I also, though, it's hard for me not to wireframe things.
I need it to be different. Yeah.
Yeah, I want gameplay that's good too. It's not enough to change the. I played as Zelda. It was called Cadence of Hyrule.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm not just there for the genitals of my avatar.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. As a thing. So but yeah, I hope that's good.
Mm-hmm.
And for people listening, they're like, why the fuck were they saying that there wasn't a portable Zelda? Now you understand.
Because it happens to us every fucking time.
Yeah. Yep. We did that for you.
Yep.
Finally, Andrew says, the first Zelda game I played as a kid was Link's Awakening on the Game Boy. When I eventually got to play Link to the Past on Game Boy Advance, I remember enjoying it a lot, but being slightly let down that lacked the same level of personality as Link's Awakening to me. I think Link Between Worlds manages to notch up the personality a bit more, and the Ravio reveal is pretty much as good as Zelda storytelling gets for whatever that's worth. I'll still never like the Hyrule of Link to the Past as much as the more offbeat and creative worlds of Link's Awakening and the Oracle games, but I'm willing to accept the age that I played them has something to do with it. The gameplay is good and the rental system works well. They even managed to avoid Ganon secretly being the villain at the end. Sort of. It's like Nintendo finally got over their ex, but had to date someone who looked just like them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cannot say how low the bar is, but literally having the game be about anything is that spends pretty far. It
spends really far.
Yeah.
It was that was the thing. If you go back to the Breath of the Wild coverage we did, that is a succinct way of my main complaint for that is that it presents this world that is going to be different. Mm-hmm. Like things, the world is dangerous. It's trouble. And then you go to that town and it's a fucking post-scarcity paradise. Mm-hmm. Like nothing bad happens to anyone in that world.
Yeah.
It is not actually doing anything different with the story stuff. Yeah. And, in addition to just having tons of text that isn't worth reading.
Yeah.
Like the dialogue has no pop. It's not concise.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the same, a bunch of cute little mutant freaks that you run into in every Zelda game. We're back to Snot Kid.
Mm-hmm.
But,
plenty of new mechanics, and we're going to put that ahead generally, but story gives you a reason to do what you want, and it looms large in the analysis, I think, as well. It tints everything, and
because we talk about it, it's you get the mechanics out of the way because they coat the entire game. And the story is the narrative beats. I like Breath of the Wild. I don't like its story.
No.
As a thing, that's when I was speaking specifically to Andrews about as good as a Zelda story gets.
Yes, yeah. And it just kind of ends up like, I don't know, Breath of the Wild, I feel nothing about its story or about its world. When my most pronounced, good Zelda memories are the bleakness of Majora's Mask or just the wistful melancholy of Link's Awakening.
Yeah,
that stuff also counts for something. Right?
Yep. Yeah. Thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. We'll talk about what we're going to do next month now.
Yeah,
which is very exciting.
Yeah,
I think.
Well, I mean, next month we've got Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door,
and less exciting, but the month after that,
and the premium episode Quake. Write in about those by July the 15th. And if you have thoughts about August games, we're going to announce those now. Gary, the first game that we're talking about there is a you pick, so I'll let you announce it.
Yeah, it's a strange one. It's the crack of the bat. The bots of summer. We're doing Super Baseball 2020. Something I've threatened for the entire length of the show. I have a weakness for 8 and 16-bit baseball games. It's my favorite because it's weird. You hire robots and you have like stats that you can power up your characters. It's not the most ambitious or complex baseball game. It's just the one I played the most.
Yeah.
And as you'll find out soon, we need something really short.
We really did.
Between Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door, because in the middle of the month, we're doing a two-parter.
A two-parter about XCOM 2. Yeah. And because of the way the expansion works, that expansion's getting worked in there too. So.
Yeah. I mean, the expansion was specifically requested.
Yes.
For that one.
Yeah.
And my understanding is it's a lot better.
Yeah.
This is something I have been holding off playing because I knew we'd cover it for the show, even though the amount of times this has been in my like emergency break glass case, and I've been tempted to hit it with a hammer, have been like a dozen times since we covered XCOM 1.
Yeah.
I love XCOM.
Yes. So looking forward to doing that. Was our original XCOM coverage, was that 2 episodes?
I think that might have been 1.
I think that might have been 1. What the fuck were we thinking?
We do that kind of shit every once in a while. Like back in the day when we were dumb and young, we're like, I don't know, this episode's gonna be 3 games.
Yeah, whatever.
I don't know. What the fuck? Let's just throw 3 games in there. Let's throw in these 2 games aren't really related. I don't know. I don't care. And then we're just like, oh, this is 1 game? Okay, well, it is, it's going to be a 4.5 hour episode and it's 40 hours of playtime, but we can squeeze that in.
Yeah, we can squeeze that in
to a healthy afternoon.
Yeah.
We did not understand pacing as well.
No. In February of 2020, it was 1 episode. It was a premium episode, XCOM Enemy Unknown. So
I'm also really excited about the premium episode for this because it's something I have no experience with. But is a major kind of black hole in my gaming experience.
Yeah.
We're covering Fable 2.
Fable 2. They worked out the kinks. They made it more of a game than Fable 1 is.
Okay.
Yeah. Has like a story. And doesn't lean on gimmicky what's his name? That dipshit.
Molyneux.
It doesn't rely on gimmicky Peter Molyneux shit as much.
I'm going to rely on you for series context.
Yes.
During the episode, I'm going into that blind through no guarantee that I'm going to dig it or whatever. I just have never played it, and it's fun to go to a major. Like that should have been up my alley. It just came up in a time when I was not playing console games.
Yeah.
That came out. I remember very specifically going over to a friend's apartment and watching them play it for a little bit when I was still very deep in the Fallout 3 mines. That doesn't necessarily mean when it came out. That's just when we were both playing at the time.
Yeah.
I just missed it. So
yeah. So Super Baseball 2020, 2-parter on XCOM 2. And premium episode is Fable 2. We got a good summer, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. If you're listening to this and you are from any oppressed group and you'd like us to promote a project of yours, please send me an email at Gary@Duckfeed.tv. Include your pronouns, a relevant link, and a pitch. We'd be happy to do so. And if you have anything to say about those games, the deadline is always the 15th. It is obviously too late for what we're talking for Link Between the Worlds, but you have until the 15th of July for Paper Mario and Quake and the 15th of August for Super Baseball, XCOM, and Fable.
Yes. Go to duckfeed.tv/contact, click the WAF button, write in your responses, 1 game per response, and keep your responses concise and specific.
Yes. If you want to hear those bonus episodes, so Quake, Fable 2, the episode we just did on Link Between Worlds, you can do so by becoming a patron. Go to patreon.com/duckfeed.tv. $5 a month gets you the bonus episode as well as a bunch of other shows. Unfilmable, bonus abject sufferings. $10 gets you adaptation decay, which several people and very heartening have been like, oh, this is my favorite show on the network.
Oh, I love that.
So yeah, you're missing it. You're missing it statistically. We understand $10 is different things to different people, but we also don't mind if you pop in and pop out.
Yeah.
If you want to hear them.
Also on the Patreon, we're recording this the week the Shadow of the Erd Tree comes out. I just did the pre-order on Steam there. When Bonfireside Jack comes back, it is going to be there just like the Elden Ring season was. So
yes. And it looks like I've been avoiding spoilers very studiously. It looks like a beefy boy in terms of length.
Yeah. So get ready, everybody.
Yeah. And rate and review us on your podcast directory of choice, wherever you get podcast, and join us in thanking our producer, Gwen.
Thank you, Gwen.
Yeah, we appreciate her. And we appreciate you, and we'll see you next week.
Yep. Bye.